Welcome again, everybody. My name is Trevor Hall. I am the host of this exploration series. I'm also the host of the Mining Stock Daily podcast. If you are unaware of what the podcast is, we are a multi-daily content provider of a news briefing in the morning before the market opens out of the junior exploration and mining sector. And then we follow up throughout the day with some intraday market commentary, corporate interviews, and company updates for interviews from executives from around the industry. We are distributed on about 12 or 13 different global networks. So wherever you get your podcast, whether it's through Apple iTunes, Spotify, even Amazon Alexa, you should be able to find us. And just we hope you subscribe to the podcast when you can. Obviously, my Amazon Alexa is confused because I spoke out of term to her. One quick note. We have shirts, Pet Rock t-shirts to celebrate the new gold bull market. You can go to our Shopify page to pick yourself up and your loved ones a lovely t-shirt. So that's my shameless plug for myself. So we've got three great companies out of the Yukon that we are going to highlight today. Not only do we have white gold, we have metallic minerals and also Western copper and gold. Quick rundown of the format. Each company presenter is going to be giving 3 minutes of time to present the company, give a quick rundown. We'll get into some Q&A panel discussion. If you, the audience, do have a question, you will see a message on the right side of your screen where you can type in the question. We will try to get to all of them or as many of them as we can throughout the time we have allotted. So let's get started. Our first contestant in the white corner, with white gold, and their CEO, Mr. David D'Onofrio. David, take it away, my friend.
Thanks for having us. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Hope everyone is doing well. 3 minutes, not a lot of time, so I'll get right into it. White Gold Corp, pretty new company, established in 2016. We are focused in the white gold district of the Yukon. This is the heart of the Klondike gold rush in the turn of the century, where from that point to this day, there's been 20 million ounces of placer gold mined out of the creeks. And I would say in the last 10 years, there's been the first sort of occurrence of modern day exploration to look for some of the sources of this gold and or other mineralization, hard rock mineralization. This area really came to fame 2009, 10, 11, when some of the properties prospected by the infamous prospector Sean Ryan had some major gold discoveries. This was through Underworld Resources on their Golden Saddle deposit, which was acquired by Kinross, and then Kaminak a few years later, which was acquired by Goldcorp, now part of Newmont. Through a long sort of turn of events, the short answer is White Gold Corp basically now owns the rest of that land package, a little over 400,000 hectares, about 1 million acres, and we are very actively and aggressively exploring that with some of these same exploration tools and the same team that led to those first big discoveries. It's a huge area. It's highly underexplored. It's a tier 1 jurisdiction, and this is why we are so excited about the opportunity. It's very unique, and this is also the reason why we think we were able to attract Agnico Eagle and Kinross as our largest shareholders. Combined, they own about 35%, and recently Eric Sprott as another member of our team as we look to unlock some of the additional riches that this area may have. Where things stand today, we're fortunate that we actually did a deal with Kinross to acquire the Golden Saddle and ARC assets from them. That's about 1.5 million ounces now. We've grown it significantly since that acquisition, and we will have another smaller deposit called the VG deposit. So all in all, we're just under 1.8 million ounces of gold. And our exploration plan this year is sort of three-pronged, the same way it's been for the last few years. One is we're spending some time to increase the size of those deposits, not through conservative delineation type drilling, but really looking at new targets within a small radius from that. Over the last couple of years, we've been quite successful in finding additional occurrences of mineralization. So those are being followed up this year, particularly, and where we just started diamond drilling a couple of weeks ago is on the Golden Saddle west, and the Ryan Surprise, which is 2 kilometers west of the Golden Saddle. So any ounces we find there will be accretive. We've had some great holes in the last 2 years, so we're pretty excited about what can come from that. There's also a number of nice targets along that similar trend. And the other sort of 2/3 of our exploration focus will be one on our Titan target, which was discovered last year. That's on our Hen property, sort of 25 kilometers northeast of the Golden Saddle. We found some very high grade gold occurrences near surface last year. So we'll be following up there with some of the first diamond drilling ever. This is also in a very rich placer district where millions of ounces have been produced. So that surface exploration with some of the supporting geophysical work makes it highly prospective. Another area where we're doing quite a bit of work is on our JP Ross property. This had some tremendous success in the last couple of years. We had the Vertigo discovery, and since then have found an additional 6 targets with some high-grade surface sampling and preliminary RAB drilling. Very high-grade gold, structurally controlled. So what we're doing there as a first step is going in and performing a very extensive mechanical trenching program, along with some deep structural interpretation to really sort of try and get a sense of what's going on. We want all the activity that we're doing to be highly focused and impactful. So we'll be that's currently underway as well, with drills coming onto that later in the season. And with such a large land package, part of our business plan is we're preparing targets for future work. So there's a number of properties we have where we're performing more of this preparatory work. 2 of the very exciting ones, which we get asked about a lot, is the Bonanza property, which is right near Dawson. That was sort of like the heart of the first discovery of the gold rush. There's been millions and millions of ounces of gold pulled out of the placer creeks there. So we're pretty excited to get that underway. And the other property I maybe have a little more time to speak about is our Betty property. That ties on to the Coffee deposit, which was owned by Kaminak Gold Corp and now Newmont, right along the same fault system. We did some drilling there in 2018, had some very successful results. So we are getting that ready for some follow-up drilling as well. So I think that is a quick 3-minute overview of what we have going on.
Thank you so much, David. Appreciate that. White gold trades as WGO in Canada and on the OTC markets in the US with WHGOF. Be sure to put your questions in for David into the chat function, and we'll take care of those and get those answered momentarily. I hope it's just me. David's screen locked up for me. I don't know, but I hope everybody's not having that much of a problem. Greg, on the other hand, is crystal clear for me. So in our far right corner, our next competitor in the navy blue trunks with the purple trim is Mr. Greg Johnson from Metallic Trades, MMG in Canada, and also MMNGF. And I hope he shares some more information of one of the most exciting silver districts we have in North America right now.
Well, thanks for that introduction, Trevor. It's great to be here, our first time. I think Metallic might be one of the newer names for listeners. So we are one of the few silver-focused explorers in the Yukon. My background, I'm an exploration geologist by training. Started out my career with Placer Dome, who was acquired by Barrick. Went on to co-found Nova Gold. And many of the people here at Metallic are former Nova Gold alumni. So we've worked together for a long time. We've got a great team of highly successful explorationists. We've focused in the Keno Hill Silver District because of this long history of high-grade production, over 200 million ounces of historic silver produced. And in the last 6 years, nearly 100 million ounces of new discovery, modern 43101 resources with our neighbor, Alexco. We are a relatively new company as well, starting in 2016. Bringing together, really the first couple of years were all about acquiring the assets. So we've now built a land position that's the second largest after Alexco here in the Keno Belt, 166 square kilometers. The focus early on was, how do we prioritize this huge land package? What are the areas we should focus on? So we had kind of a two-pronged focus. We identified 6 target areas that were right on trend of the known mines and prospects, and in fact we've got 8 historic producing mines on our ground, so kind of head frame exploration, if you will. And then the second focus has been on the greenfields part of this brownfields district. So out in the east, where we have the same Keno Hill quartzite and greenstone that hosts the major deposits on the west, and to the south, we've basically gone out and followed up work from the 1950s and 60s from Alexco's predecessor. We've developed 12 multi-kilometer soil anomalies that we're just starting to sink our teeth into in terms of first drilling. So this year's program, it's going to be the biggest exploration program in Metallic's young history. We're going to be a combination of core drilling on the advanced stage targets to keep building out on mineral inventories towards future 43101 resources. And then on these early stage targets, we're getting the first reverse circulation drill holes into those to really understand what they're about. The targets on the advanced stage are clearly classic Keno Hill type systems. We're getting 500 to 1,000 gram type silver grade, so quite spectacular grades. The stuff on the east, we think it might be more of the same, but the footprints are so large, we're not sure if it's just more of the same classic Keno Hill type systems, or if we might be closer to the source intrusions that everyone's been looking for historically in the district. So it's an exciting time for us to get some holes in to kind of understand the third dimension on those big targets and to move towards building out resources here with a target to be able to table first resources hopefully by 2021.
Thank you so much, Greg. All right, now on to our, my returning champion, Mr. Paul West-Sells, the long-going joke between him and I. He's made more appearances on the Mining Stock Daily podcast than any other CEO in this industry. So and here we are once again in the hot seat, Paul, our returning champion, CEO of Western Copper and Gold, Mr. Paul West-Sells, trades on WRN, both on the TSX and NYSE. Take it away, Paul.
Well, thank you very much, Trevor. And hopefully everyone can hear me. We had a few audio challenges here, and I think Windows updated halfway through this all. But so let's talk about Western Copper and Gold. A bit of a different story. I mean, we're doing some exploration, but we start with a fairly large project. The Casino deposit, we issued an updated resource. We're now sitting at 21 million ounces of gold and 11 billion pounds of copper. Very large copper gold porphyry. That updated resource that we issued a little over a month ago was the result of an infill drilling campaign that we did last year. And so the goal last year was to do an infill drilling campaign, release an updated resource, which we've done. But when we did that infill drilling campaign, we actually hit some really interesting anomalous results, nicely anomalous results, which we're following up this year. And that's really been our exploration targets. And the first anomalous result was high-grade gold in the south of the deposit. We hit 55 grams per ton over 3 meters. That was the third time we'd hit this really high-grade gold. Historically, we'd hit another sort of 53 gram per ton and a 73 gram per ton over these short intervals. So it was one of these situations where, you hit it once, it's an anomaly. You hit it twice, it's interesting. You hit it 3 times, and really you can't ignore this. So one of the key goals this year is to go back into that area and to drill and try to put together that gold zone in the south of the deposit. So that's target number 1. Target number 2 is on the north part of our deposit. So the Casino, the 21 million ounces of gold, 11 billion pounds of copper, that's the main deposit. We were drilling and really thinking that we were closing off the north face of that deposit last year. And what we found is actually it started to get thicker, and we actually hit a separate porphyry deposit to the north of us. So again, we're in there. That's target number 2 is to focus on that and really just sort of roughly delineate what do we have there. We know it's a younger deposit. We're hopeful that there might be some higher grades there. Remains to be seen. So those are the 2 primary targets. And then the tertiary target is really this property that we got last year. And last year we got, we acquired the Canadian Creek project, which is directly to the west of us, sits between us and Newmont. And really there's a whole bunch of exploration targets there. But the 2 that we're going to focus on, one of them is also seems to have some high grade gold. And then the other one is the Anna target, which is another porphyry target for us.
All right, Paul. Thank you so much. It sounds like a nice little starter operation. Rooms for expansion.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's get into. I'm going to keep it with you, Paul, and with David, because I know this is an ongoing question, but everybody wants to know because you never know when things change. What's the status with coffee? What are you hearing from the ground there? Since you both share borders with it, and what can you share? And what would you prefer to happen?
You want to start, Paul, and I can.
Sure.
All right, happy to.
I mean, I can tell you what's happening on the ground because we're both up there, so we know what's happening on the ground. Newmont being a very large gold company, I think they are being very, very conservative with the COVID situation, and so I think initially they had some drilling planned, but this year they're not doing any drilling. Latest I heard is that they were just going to do some, sampling. And might be a little bit of geophysics. I mean, they certainly have people up at site doing some work there. But unlike last year I believe they had 5 drills at Coffee operating. This year, I don't believe that they have any. So that's what's happening on the ground. In terms of what Newmont, I mean, we're all sort of a bit of a family up there. I mean, everyone knows each other. Certainly, with White Gold, with this great exploration potential, us with a large porphyry, Newmont with the Coffee, which is a great project. There's lots of discussions going on. Big companies being big companies, they move at a fairly glacial pace. Hence why I think we just keep moving forward, and that's sort of the really what all we can do.
David, do you have any other take?
Yeah, I think that's pretty consistent with what we've seen. They were from one of our last conversations, as Paul mentioned, pretty active last year, really sort of looking at some of these other targets further away from sort of the core deposit. A lot of new targets or targets with limited testing to get a sense of what else the property has to offer, which likely a lot more. So kind of get a sense of sort of the upside potential in that regard. And in terms of what can happen strategically, obviously it's an attractive target. It was 3 years ago at very different gold environment. You can only extrapolate that to today, and I think interest follows suit with that as well. So it's very exciting and great sort of piece of the puzzle in this emerging district. So excited to see that proceed and succeed.
So let me follow up with this question, and it's going to be a tough one. And you can be as politically correct as you need to be, but I think the market maybe is questioning if Coffee is more suited for a major producer such as Newmont, or if it'd be better developed and moved forward by an exploration company such as either one of you two. What do you think?
I'll let you take first stab at that one, David.
Sure. You're absolutely right. Newmont is a behemoth, right? And they have a threshold of what's a proper project for a company like that. That's among a number of companies you can count on probably half the fingers on your hand, which that's great for them. It's obviously was inherited as part of a bigger acquisition. As Paul mentioned, these big companies move very slowly. Would we see maybe more aggressive development with a separate ownership? Potentially, but I don't think that the decisions maybe as binary an Explorer versus a Newmont. There's a lot of companies in between, especially in this type of environment where a project like that could be a great sort of number 2 project or 3 project to bring online for a mid-tier producer, or a new company maker for people with the access to capital and team to look to sort of set their sort of mark in this new environment and build a company off of and with the sort of the complements of everything else in the district to offer additional optionality and strategic possibilities. So there's a lot of things that could happen, all of which I think would be beneficial to the district.
Yeah, and I guess what I would echo what David has said on that. The Coffee project is a great project. There's absolutely no doubt of it. Is it big enough for Newmont? That's probably the debate. However, you then take your step back and look at that district, and obviously we've got a lot of gold. There's a lot of coffee. There's a lot at what White Gold is found, and then the exploration potential in that district is. I mean, that's the one thing that everybody says that looks at that district is they're always surprised at how underexplored it is. So then you have to stop and say, is Newmont going to walk away from, 20 to 30 million ounces of gold already identified and huge exploration potential just because, coffee is a little bit too small? They might, but that would be, that'd be a tough decision for them to make.
Okay. All right, David and Paul, you're off the hot seat for a few minutes. Let's turn it over to Greg. Greg, you are in what I think is one of the most exciting silver districts, not only North America, but obviously the world. Keno Hill, we've seen a lot of great development in this jurisdiction. Victoria Gold Mine's coming online. Looks like Alexco, your neighbors, are going to be into production into Q4, so very soon. Yeah. Just talk about being a part of this area and what you are going to provide to increase the more value into the Keno Hill jurisdiction.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. The Keno Hill is kind of, it's not really appreciated for what the caliber of that asset. We've got a district that's produced, it's one of the highest grade in the world. We've got this tremendous history of production, 220 million ounces, and now Alexco has found, 100 million ounces in the last 6 years. They did get their permit, so I was just out at site last week, and the amount of activity out there, it's night and day with where it was, last year. So those guys are full swing to get back into production. There's lots of activity. I mean, everyone's doing the COVID stuff, but it's very, very active area. And it's a big deal with that mine restarting. It's the third mine in the last 12 months to come back on stream. So you've got Victoria with their new operation. You've got the former Capstone operation at Minto that's come back on, and now Alexco. So it's exciting times in the Yukon. When you look at the broader district, it's 35 kilometers across from the westernmost producer to the easternmost producer. The western half of the district was consolidated early by Alexco's predecessor, United Keno Hill Mines. And it's really been a very patchwork land ownership up until really we came into the district and started pulling things together. So we put together about a third of the district through acquisitions from private groups. Another third came in by acquiring property that was held by Independence Gold and Strategic Metals and these juniors that had blocks that didn't necessarily make sense for them to focus on, but made a lot of sense in our Keno portfolio. And then we staked about a third of the district. So that gave us that combined. So now when you look at the district today, it's very much kind of inner fingered. You've got Alexco largely on the west and center part of the district. And we basically control the entire eastern half of the district, and then some of the stuff to the south, and in some places we're in Alexco's living room across the street. So it's a great place to be operating because almost everything is road accessible. So that means the cost to explore are quite inexpensive, and the upside for our shareholders is even if we find something relatively modest in size to start with. I mean, our target is to find more Birminghams, more 50+ million ounce deposits, near surface. But let's say we find a 20 million ounce deposit. Well, that's 3 or 4 years of production for Keno Hill. And so the opportunity for us to look at that mill that sits in the center of the district, that's clearly within trucking distance, means we can have a fast track way to bring resources very quickly to production. And that's a win-win for everyone in the district, for the communities, and for the Yukon.
Okay. Greg, I want to keep it with you because I have a follow-up question for you because this is really interesting and I would like some clarification from you. Sure. In a recent presentation, in some materials, you included Penasquito as a comparison.
Yeah.
You got to bring us down to earth on this one. Why?
Okay. Yeah. So historically, the focus, that early consolidation was in the western part of the district, and up to this point, everything we've found in the district are these very high-grade, structurally controlled silver, lead, zinc deposits. That's what a classic Keno Hill deposit is: 500 to 1,000 grams plus silver grade, 25% credits from lead and zinc. On the east, we have actually more Keno Hill quartzite exposed on the east than we do on the west. It's flatter, it's thicker. We've got more greenstones, which are also some of the high-grade hosts. So it's been recognized all the way back to the 1950s and 60s that, hey, there's mineralization out there on the east, but there was no road access previously, and yet that patchwork land ownership. But some of the United Keel Hill Mines guys, they recognized that, had similar kind of signature out there. So they did do some early soil and rock sampling from the 50s and 60s that we were the first to follow up in 2018. And that led to the discovery of these multi-kilometer scale footprint soil anomalies. So we've got 10 anomalies on the eastern half of the district that are between 2 and 5 kilometers in length, up to a couple of kilometers wide, that are running 100 grams per ton silver equivalent. And so in soils. And soil is weathered bedrock, so typically your material in the bedrock should be higher than what the soils are. So one, the footprint. The Birmingham Trend, which contains 150 million ounces, is 1.5 kilometers long and 200 meters wide. These anomalies are 10 times larger than that. So already by sheer footprint, these are huge. So that starts to get you thinking. The second piece of the puzzle here is, as the new guys on the block, we came in and reinterpreted all of the regional geophysics. And as we started to look at it, we said, oh, look, isn't this interesting? We've got a series of intense maglows that are directly adjacent to the biggest deposits in the district. And as they go out to the east, they turn to the south, and they occur directly underneath of these large soil anomalies. So that means we've got a soil signature that would be ore grade in the Penasquito pit. We've got a signature size in terms of footprint that's multi-kilometer in scale, and it's got an intense magnetic low signature to it. Well, the hallmark of a Penasquito or a Cripple Creek, these bulk tonnage deposits, which are vein systems and breccia systems that are closely proximal to the original source porphyries or intrusions. And so that's what has started to take us down this route of these targets out on the east. They may just be bigger collections of classic Keno-type vein systems, and that's why the footprints are bigger, so just more veins. But because of that magnetic signature, because we're seeing porphyry dikes in that area, which is unusual for the Keno district, we are starting to say it's possible that we're seeing the source of the Keno district here, and that we could have something more similar to a Cripple Creek or a Penasquito. And so that conceptual model is part of what we're going to be testing this year with the Truth Machine, the drill. Get some first holes across this in 3D to see, is it just classic Keno, or are we seeing something that has breccias and other things that could suggest a bulk tonnage target?
Thanks, Greg. David, let's turn it over to you. And on the back of some exploration work, can you give people who are listening in today kind of, through this season's exploration work, what a successful outcome might be once everything is wrapped up in the winter, and what you look to achieve, knowing that you have just a massive land package?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the sort of mixed blessings we've had as a company is just with so much going on, you really have to find a systematic way to prioritize your time and your dollars. And, within our technical group, everyone has their favorites and their theories. But, the approach we've taken as a company is we want to proceed on different targets only if, as and when they're ready. And we have a very fulsome protocol of the work that needs to get done to be able to sort of provide a thesis to move to the next level of exploration. In this district, with it being unglaciated, this all starts with the soil sampling, which success will then move on to either trenching or probe work. Success from then will lead to additional type structural work or the RAB drill. That's a very novel concept that we utilize here. It's popular in a lot of areas around the world, not so much in Canada. But why it's a great tool for us is that it allows us to get a lot of information, shallow first sort of 100 meters very quickly and inexpensively. And in a jurisdiction where unfortunately our operating season is limited, that's become a very useful tool, and it's the same protocol that was used by Sean Ryan and his team that led to the Golden Saddle discovery and coffee and everything else. And so we have a number of projects that are in the works, and they're sort of in three different buckets. There's the earlier stage type projects, which we are preparing to get them to be drill ready. And there's a couple of those that are seeing activity this year, or there's actually a number of them. I think the highest profile ones will be, I may have touched on them earlier, our Betty project, which is along the Coffee Creek Fault and ties on to Newmont's property. We've done some drill work on that in 2018, and we came up with some very interesting results. An example is 50 plus meters of a little over a gram material right from surface, kind of similar DNA to what we've seen at the Coffee. So we'd really like to do a little more work and have that property sort of prepped and ready for drill work either right at the end of this year or at the beginning of next year. Similar type activity on our Bonanza property, which is just south of Dawson. And obviously was the site of the original Klondike discovery. We've done a lot of work there, structural type work particularly, and are very excited to drill parts of that piece of property which have actually never been drilled historically, which is quite rare. And that the whole district is underexplored, but this part of the district maybe a little bit more exploration, being sort of right in the heart of the original gold rush. But this area actually had never seen any exploration. So getting those targets, moving them up our pipeline. We have a number of other sort of new discoveries, we call them, that have followed on from that type of work in the past couple of years. The couple that are seeing the most work in this season is our Titan discovery on our Hen property that was found last year, which is a piece of property that was worked for the first time ever by our company for sure, and I don't think much work had been done in the past. Started with a soil sample, went through that protocol, continued to find more and more high-grade gold, and we will be doing some RAB drilling and diamond drilling this year as well. So this has a lot of different characteristics, all of it very prospective. Nobody's kind of really sure of exactly what it might be, and that's the only one way to find out is get the drills turning and then get some more information. So very excited to sort of see how that all pans out, as well as on our JP Ross property. This is where we had the Vertigo discovery. Another 6 targets were found in what we call the Vertigo Trend. It's a 15 kilometer by 15 kilometer area, all road accessible from Dawson, so very easy to work. And the next step here is because of the complexity of what we saw in the structural host, we're doing a lot of trench work, and this was actually really favored by our partner Agnico as well. They're very involved technically, in our strategy and our approach, and to really spend the time to figure out sort of more information in that regard and follow that up with a significant amount of RAB drilling this season as well. So we're very excited. We've had high grade results in the last 2 years now on that property, and follow up there just to sort of get a sense of what the geometry is there, because we think that could really be significant mineralization hosted in that area. And then sort of moving up the ladder to our more advanced stage properties, we have our Golden Saddle Arc deposit, which is a little over 1.5 million ounces now, and testing some of these satellite targets, which have been discovered in the last couple of years. The one that's going to get the most focus this year is our Ryan Surprise. We've had sort of very high grade intercepts in the last 2 years. What's kind of unique is last year there was a revised interpretation of the direction of the structure, and we went in with only 2 diamond holes last year, and we hit both of them, which has really kind of sort of improved our understanding and prospectivity of that target. So we're actually diamond drilling that one right now, and any type of ounces we find there will be accretive to our current deposit, the Golden Saddle deposit. And in this type of a market, we're fortunate to have a package of land that's as Paul said, very underexplored, and unique to be able to have something like that anywhere in the world, but to be able to have that in a tier 1 jurisdiction with the support from all sort of stakeholders is something that's pretty special. And I think what's attracted the majors to take a real interest in this area. And with the type of and the size of the deposit that we have, obviously, there's not too many of those in these types of places in the world. And we're very excited to be able to sort of continue to demonstrate the upside opportunity with those assets as well. So, sort of three buckets we're working moving forward. A lot going on, makes the story a little bit complicated. But as a major shareholder, with our group Power One, along with Nico and Kinross, I think it presents a very unique type of an exploration company, that you have a very significant deposit. You sort of can pin a value on that with a lot of additional upside there alone, plus this huge district scale land package, which is just seeing some of this modern exploration for the first time. And what we do truly believe that this is like owning 40% of the Timmins camp 70 years ago, or places in Nevada or Quebec, and with just sort of untapped potential that we're kind of just really literally scratching the surface on, with modern technology now.
Paul, this is the last question for you. Then we're going to go into Q&A from the audience. But Western's at this, I feel like, is at this like crossroads here, right? I mean, the casino deposit for what you have is massive. On the flip side of it, your acquisition of Canadian Creek has a lot of exploration potential. Do you feel like the market is maybe more leveraged to Western Copper and Gold, considering taking the casino project and pushing towards more directional into building the thing and getting a mine going with the addition of the exploration from Canadian Creek? Or are you going to go continue purely exploration?
Yeah, I mean, the quick answer is that the primary focus is to drive forward the project. And so, take a step back and talk about like why are we doing exploration at Western Copper and Gold this year? And as I said, the key reason is target number one, which is that high grade gold district in the south of our deposit. And why is that important? It's important because if we can sort of string together that high grade gold area in the deposit, and even if that high grade gold ends up being diluted down into, let's say, gram per ton sort of grades, what that does is it adds to our project, it adds to the heap leach. And so, I mean, our project, large copper gold porphyry, in terms of the way that we have looked at developing it, one of the more attractive ways to develop it is to stage develop it, starting off with the gold heap leach. And if we can bring in that higher grade gold in the south after delineating it, then that becomes a standalone project. We start with the gold heap leach, and then we move on to the main porphyry. So, but I always say, we're a company more of engineers than geologists. Whenever we do our drilling, it's around how do we improve net present value? How do we improve IRR on the project? It's all project driven in terms of this turning into a mine, and that's absolutely our focus. So even though we're doing quote unquote exploration, really it's just further delineation of things that we already know, and it's working towards improving the overall project.
Okay. There was a follow-up question from the audience for you, Paul, just based on what you've seen, or maybe from what the team's seen out of preliminary drilling this summer. Anything you can share out of that?
I wish I could. I mean, what I would say is that we certainly have been seeing some interesting results. Part of the problem with having 55 gram per ton intervals is that it's got to be pretty spectacular for me to news release it at this point in time. But I mean, it's going to be lots of we're going to have a busy winter, sort of pouring through all the results, I think. But there's certainly lots of stuff. Lots of chewy stuff that we've seen so far that I think is going to make for a very interesting story.
Okay. David, how about you? When could the market expect to see first assays out?
We're hoping to start getting those in the next several weeks. I think one of the many problems that sort of COVID has created is a real increase in turnaround time at the labs, and I think probably common amongst other companies you speak to with their physical distancing requirements. A lot of them had to really cut down their workforce, which just means less bodies in the lab, less samples getting turned. So it's about double the time almost from what we've experienced historically. And I like to think we kind of get some preferential treatment, being one of the busier juniors out there. So hopefully we should have a better sense of that in the next couple of weeks, and then once we start, then will be consistent right through into the winter, I'm sure. But we're all very eager to start seeing some of the results here for sure.
Okay. Greg, you have, looks like, a plethora of fans in Germany, given the questions coming in. But people want to know, given the targets you have for your exploration work, and this is pretty forward thinking, obviously, but what would you expect to see maybe a resource being put together, an early resource being put together, given what you have?
Well, we've got 3 target areas that we call our advanced stage targets. We have 6 total advanced stage, but 3 of those already have enough drilling, trenching, or underground sampling that we've got an initial mineral inventory on those. So we're building on them. It's really kind of getting them to critical mass, building the tonnage out. So we're doing step-out drilling on those targets. We're already 3D modeling, for instance, at our Formo and Caribou targets. So it's an iterative process. We're building on it. We're going to hit some holes in those targets this year, and we'll see if that's enough to really move the dial in terms of what the market would see as significant, or whether we need to do a bit more work. But our objective is to advance these to first resources, and ideally by 2021 is what we're targeting. So, but that's going to be highly contingent on the results that come out of this. We've had some pretty spectacular results. We've already posted results from our Keno West targets, some underground sampling. We had up to 7,500 grams per ton silver in some of those. So that was pretty exciting stuff. We've got news coming from Keno East here shortly in terms of some of the work that we've been doing on the surface and on the geophysics. And then kind of like David said, we'd expect first drill results to start coming out perhaps in early September.
And it sounds like you got some money in the bank now.
Yeah. We just closed this morning, $8 million bought deal with Canaccord, with Eric Sprott as the largest investor in that. He took about 20% of that deal, so his second investment in the company. So we're well funded. We're sitting around $10 million, and we've got about another $12 million in the money warrants and options. So we're really in great shape to accelerate our programs and really get out there and start taking to these where we think, all these targets where we think they really can go.
What's the time frame? How long do you think that 8 million will last you, Greg?
Well, as we know, exploration is an expensive business. But the benefits of being like the other 2 companies here, the fact that we've got road access and things that really helps stretch those dollars further, but certainly would take us into 2021. We don't have a lot of carrying costs. We don't have a heavy cost. We share corporate costs with our 2 sister companies, Group 10 Metals and Granite Creek Copper, also Yukon focused companies. And so that means we can keep our G&A low. So we can really stretch that money a long ways, and we try to maximize money in the ground to really go as far as we can with that.
Okay. There was this kind of a blanket question. This is more of a group question, and I think it's timely. Some of us were chatting before we launched about the movement in the gold and silver prices this week. I think people are a little shaken in their boots Monday and Tuesday. We had an excellent run. It was a little gold and silver moved pretty high pretty quickly. Myself, if we want to hang out at 1950, I'm perfectly okay with that. But don't you think can you talk about the need to just kind of find some sort of foundation going through this, but yet doesn't the case for gold and silver still remain as staunch as ever? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I'll launch in. I think our approach in terms of putting together the company in 2016 was that we were coming out of an 8-year bear market. that it was the right time to be getting prepared for the next multi-year bull market. We expected a period of consolidation, which we saw from 2016 through 2020, and that we think the seeds have been planted here for the next major bull market in commodities. It's going to start with precious metals if it's like past cycles, and copper and the base metals will kick in probably with a bit of a lag. For us, this feels a lot like 2002 in terms of where we might be on this next, cycle, and that was a 10-year cycle, 2001, 2002 to 2011. I think these things are poised. This is a sector where the percentages can be eye-watering, both on the upside and on the downside. But actually, if you look at gold, it's been very constructive, higher highs, higher lows for more than 18 months. Silver is just barely catching up with gold. The ratio is still at historic highs, and I think this is a really healthy, quick correction to get the frothiness out a bit. I agree with you. If we stabilize here, this is fantastic, and let's hope for kind of a more modest trajectory. But if we're at the beginnings of a multi-year bull, we're just getting started here, and I would expect silver will ultimately take out its previous highs like gold has, and that we'll see the same on copper and some of the other metals, and that this is an exciting time to be looking at high quality exploration development stage companies in our sector.
Let's table the copper for Paul, but before that, David, what are your thoughts on the movement?
I totally agree with Greg. I'm sort of not a macroeconomist, but certainly the foundations for look to be set and constructive for continued price appreciation across the commodities. There's also the effect of the dollar there, which people will have their own perspectives on. The only one thing I would add, from a company perspective, and I think the other guys probably share similar views, is you want to be sort of operating towards some sort of a conservative base case scenario, which has always been the case. I'd be hesitant to start looking at prospectivity of projects using $2,000 gold as kind of a base case sensitivity in that analysis. And I know for ourselves, for sure, sort of just based on kind of internal desktop work we've done over years ago, these projects all looked very prospective at much lower gold prices, and that's kind of our internal mindset and how we're working. And at these prices, and if prices continue to go, that's just sort of all icing on the cake from our perspective. And definitely welcome that. It certainly brings a lot more interest and helps things get done. But I think the opportunity for that is incredible. And there should be a strong premium for working in a tier one jurisdiction like the Yukon. I don't think that can be understated enough. We've seen tremendous efforts, both politically and financially, from the Yukon and federal governments, specifically to support the mineral extraction industry and the benefits. That is so unique globally, and I think the benefits of that will be paid back in spades to the government. So really commend them on that for all their support, and they're always there to help in any way they can. So that I don't think the market's priced that into any of our companies yet, but it truly is another differentiating factor. Not to mention that we're operating in Canadian dollars with these commodities trading in US dollars, et cetera, stuff everyone else knows, of course.
Okay. Paul, can you add some commentary with copper?
Absolutely. And I'd sort of pick up from what Greg was talking about, that it feels like, 2001, 2002. And, I'd even say, a little bit like 2008, 2009, where you had, in that case, obviously a market crash. In this case, it's a different thing, but the same reaction happens. And then there's a move into gold initially, and then that's followed up by this sort of massive stimulation spending on a global basis. And 2009, 2010, it was mostly focused in China, but here you're going to have it focused, I think, across the globe. And whenever you see, so the question comes, why is copper up? Why is copper, sort of in the 290 range? Now, part of that is because there's copper mines that are being shut down in South America due to COVID. But more importantly, it's because people are anticipating this sort of, how do we restart the global economy on the back of a vaccine. You do that by stimulus spending. You do that by building infrastructure. All of that equals copper. That's why copper is up. That's why copper has just begun. 290 is just back into sort of a healthy level. I mean, the last time copper ran, it was over $4. I expect it to go, well over that $4 again during this cycle. And again, as Greg says, it feels like just the beginning of this. You're also seeing money just come into the sector. The investment in cannabis is sort of over. Investment in blockchain is somewhat over. So you're seeing the money coming back into the mining sector. And it's an exciting time, and it's just the beginning.
Well, gentlemen, if we get a 10 to 12% decline in the price of gold, we call it a correction, and we get a correction. If we were to get a 10% decline in the overall stock market, we'd get a stimulus package. So that's the difference right there. So thank you so much. That's all the time we have. All three of these gentlemen are available for questions via email or always a phone call if you can get them scheduled. If you have some follow-ups for them, please don't hesitate to try to reach out. That's the wrap from us today. Thank you so much, David, Greg, and Paul. It was a real pleasure. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Trevor.
Thanks, Trevor. Good luck, everyone.